And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Thursday edition of Football at 4. Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com is here. Eagles getting ready for Doug Peterson's Jacksonville Jaguars. Kind of a sneaky little game here. Jacksonville, high expectations. They haven't been very good. They fought hard last week in a loss to the Packers. How do they match the Birds? Let's bring Andrew DiCecco in from InsideTheBirds.com to give us the breakdown. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
All is well, man. And, of course, this was supposed to be a Sunday night game. People had high expectations for both the Eagles and the Jags. The Eagles are on their way to trying to meet those expectations. Jacksonville has really struggled. I guess the question always is, when you have a bad team with talent, do you look at this as a trap game? Is this a Jacksonville team that is a scary team in your mind?
I suppose you could look at it as a trap game coming off three back-to-back wins, and two of which were in blowout fashion. It's kind of easy to overlook a team that really doesn't have much going for them in the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially when you have the Dallas Cowboys coming up. But I think this Eagles team is wired a little bit differently. I would not expect them to overlook their opposition, and I just feel like every time I've been around the team, you get a sense that they're really focused, and I really would expect them to really take it to the Jaguars and look to exploit their vulnerabilities, especially being in the passing game.
All right, so let's look at some of these matchups and the vulnerabilities. You got Philadelphia, ran the ball 39 times last week, Andrew. Barkley over 100, and obviously you saw 10 rushes from Jalen Hurts. They ran almost 40 times, as we mentioned. How does Jacksonville stack up with the Eagles' offensive line and the Eagles' propensity to want to kind of pound that run at you?
Jacksonville is really anemic against the run. They're not great against the pass either. I think that the passing game is probably where the Eagles are going to look to exploit that. I would expect a big game from A.J. Brown. The middle of the field should be pretty favorable for someone like a Grant Calcaterra, assuming Dallas Goedert doesn't suit up this weekend. But they should be able to run and have their druthers in the ground game as well. I would expect a really balanced attack from Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, and I would expect the Eagles to be able to have a game plan really reminiscent of what you saw against the Bengals. I thought they did a really good job of mixing in both the run and the pass, and I would expect the offense to continue to look a lot more smooth as we move forward into the season.
Now, you wrote a Q&A with Tyler Steen late last week, early this week. And, Steen, Fred Johnson, how has it been that the Eagles' offensive line hasn't dropped off? We see, Andrew, so many lines around this league struggle. When an injury happens, it just completely tears. Look at Minnesota right now. Darisaw goes out, messes up their year. Look what's going on with the Jets. Watch Cincinnati last week. It's a team with a struggling offensive line. How big has the offensive line been and their ability to have guys step right in? How big has it been for the growth of this offense?
Huge. They're very adaptable. I think two of the heroes that came out of that game, and they weren't talked about enough because I think what they were able to do was really impressive, was left tackle Fred Johnson, of course, stepping in for Jordan Mailata, and right guard Tyler Steen. Tyler Steen, I think, has done a really nice job stepping in place of Mekhi Becton, who returned to practice in a limited capacity yesterday as he works his way through concussion protocol with the we'll have to see if he's able to go, but I think either way, the Eagles should be equipped to withstand whatever the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to throw at them with Tyler Steen at right guard. Jeff Stoutland has done a really good job of getting the players up and ready for these games, but also you have to give credit to the players for working on their own development, because it would have been very easy for someone like a Tyler Steen to go in the other direction after not winning that starting job. But he took to his role, and Fred Johnson really rose to the occasion as well, and I think that speaks to their accountability and pride in what they do, but also Jeff Stoutland for coaching them in the way that he has.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. When you see growth in the Eagles' pass game, where is that kind of growing? Where is that growth coming from? Because we have seen, it's not like Jalen Hurts. They're not saying, hey, get the ball out quicker. That's not really what's happening here. But why is he kind of finding some, progressions and finding some guys open in much better spots rather than just chucking it down the field one-on-one the last week or two?
Well, really what I think it boils down to is just a player becoming more and more comfortable with the offense, an offensive coordinator becoming more comfortable with his quarterback, what works for him, how they're able to kind of translate what he's looking to do. And I just think it's been an effort on both parts in trying to find their way through the season. It was never going to happen easily. It was always going to take a little bit of time, even with the star-studded cast that they had on offense. It's just a matter of when there's so much newness, sometimes it's a little turbulent and things aren't firing as they're supposed to. But the further you get into the season and things are starting to slow down a little bit, players around Jalen Hurts are becoming more comfortable, and Jalen Hurts is becoming more comfortable with what he's being asked to do. It's just a byproduct of patience, I believe, and it's something that I would expect them to be on the ascent, whereas some teams get off to really fast starts, and you wonder if they're able to sustain that. I think the Eagles are a team where you start out slow, and they're picking up momentum at the right time.
Right, so you would describe the Eagles' offense as like there's still more meat on the bone here.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Andrew, let's flip over to what we're going to see with the Eagles' defense, their matchup against a Jacksonville team. You know, they signed Trevor Lawrence to this big deal. He was the number one pick. He was supposed to be the next big thing. It hasn't really worked out there. They brought in these receivers for him. Kirk ends up getting hurt. They got some injury issues here. What on this Jacksonville offense, when you look at them, would be the matchup concern for this week?
I mean, there's not much. They're really depleted at wide receiver. Travis Etienne hasn't done a ton. I think Tank Bigsby, their second-year running back, I believe, has been sort of a nice story for them. He's a pretty good between the tackles runner. He's somebody that the Eagles are going to have to wrap up. Trevor Lawrence is always a threat to kind of he's not necessarily, I wouldn't classify him as a scrambler per se, but he's fleet-footed, and he's somebody that can hurt you if you're not on your game and if you're not on your P's and Q's. But maybe the middle of the field, I think with Evan Ingram is something to maybe keep an eye on. But other than that, the Jacksonville Jaguars are ill-equipped to really threaten any team, offensively or defensively.
Now, you mentioned the middle of the field over at InsideTheBirds.com, Andrew DiCecco. You wrote about the linebacking kind of development there, because we were talking on the show yesterday. Like, I saw a proposed trade of bringing in a guy like Josie Jewell and saying, hey, do you bring in another linebacker here? How pleased are they with the linebackers? Is that a spot that if they made a trade? Like I said, if they brought in somebody, they might be better than what you have, but it feels like Vic is starting to get comfortable with how he's using his two guys.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure that they would be better than what they have, and maybe it's because I kind of viewed the linebacker group a little bit at a higher level than maybe some others going into the season, but that's not to say that I thought they were world beaters, but I thought that they were competent enough and they were an upgrade to what they had last season, and more importantly, someone like a Zach Baughan was somebody that Vic Fangio identified as somebody being a middle linebacker that could execute his system. He's a sharp-minded football player, and Vic knows what he wants. So that's something that you don't want to mess with. You don't want to mess with that formula. And Kobe Dean's been a revelation, a third-year player who played just 182 snaps last year. Going into the season, all I heard was, he's too small, he's injury-prone, which is that's absolutely incorrect. He was injured his second season on a pair of foot injuries, and he was completely healthy his first season. He didn't miss a practice or a game. And he's now played the fourth most defensive snaps at 409. He's second on the Eagles in tackles. So I think that they've gotten good production from their linebackers, and really that just comes with reps. It comes with chemistry and continuity, and adding a player to that mix I think would disrupt that. The linebacker room, and this is a really tight team from what I've been able to see. Like everyone's really together. It's a close-knit unit, and it's vastly different from last season. And one of the rooms that really strike me as being really close is that linebacker room. So I don't know that you want to mess with that formula. I think they have something good going right now. And they, in many ways, they've been the glue on a defense that, aside from Jalen Carter, they haven't had any stalwarts. It's really a good collective effort from everyone involved.
Andrew, one of the guys that I think has really turned, I want to get your thoughts on, because I know when we talked about Cooper DeJean at the draft time, how somebody would use him, corner, safety, nickel. What impresses you about how the Eagles are using him, and how has he changed this defense?
His ability to attack the line of scrimmage. He's an excellent open field tackler. He sees things quickly. He's instinctive. He closes on the football extremely fast. And for a player who, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, he missed the first 3 weeks of training camp. So naturally for a rookie, especially playing the position that he plays, the nickel role, which I believe to be the most complicated defensive position, I think that really speaks to his football acumen. But it also speaks highly to Cooper and working diligently behind the scenes, and defensive backs coach Christian Parker for working with those young defensive backs and getting them up to speed. But I think Cooper just sees things so quickly, and his ability to be a player that you can really deploy anywhere in your back end if you need to. For Vic Fangio, that has to be a comforting thing. I believe that the insertion of Cooper DeJean really helped transform that whole defense.
Quinyon Mitchell's the other guy. I know you liked him come draft time. Has he exceeded expectations? Is there more that you think both those guys seem like they're getting more and more comfortable and confident each week, but is he ahead of where you thought he might be?
Yeah, I think Quinyon Mitchell has been the player I've been most impressed with. His ability to really have that short memory, play snap to snap, be the confident player that's going to command the opposition's top receiver, and really he doesn't flinch. The moment's not too big for him. I think playing that position that he does, where you're constantly in the spotlight, you're always operating on an island, it's very easy to, bail on your technique. It's easy to let the moment maybe the moment can be too big for you because of the spotlight, but for him, it hasn't been the case. So I have to think that while he probably expected this of himself, he's probably surpassed expectations, and even the Eagles could have had 7 games into his career.
Andrew, one of the things with this matchup, you see Doug Peterson coming back into town, and Jacksonville kind of seems like there's been so many rumors surrounding him. How about how Nick has kind of pushed through here? There's so much talk about Jacksonville, and they had the 2 games in London, and if they didn't play the 2 games in London, maybe Doug, and it seems like the heat's still there. How has Nick kind of pushed through all of the heat that he got after that loss in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I heard a lot of misinformation from, whether you see it on social media or you hear it, that, after the Browns game, did Nick Sirianni lose the team? Was that something that was going to fracture the lock? That's not the case at all. How he's viewed on the outside has nothing to do, and there's no correlation with how he's viewed inside that building. When you see a team that comes out of the bye week, they beat the Browns, you have to deal with that distraction. But when Nick was at his most vulnerable against the Giants, it would have been so easy for the season to go the other way. Instead, the Eagles punish an inferior opponent, as they should, 28-3, and they follow that up in another week where it would have been easy to maybe play down, or maybe you're looking past that. And they trounce the Cincinnati Bengals 37-17. They're playing hard for not only one another, but they're playing hard for Nick Sirianni. It shows that his voice is resonating throughout the locker room. It shows a collective buy-in, and I just think that it's so important to emphasize this because you hear so much nonsense out there that he's being tuned out or whatever the case is, and that's just simply not accurate. And I think you're seeing it on the field because under normal circumstances, Mike, you would have seen a team go the other direction and a team sort of spiral in the opposite direction.
Well, they've certainly picked it up 3 in a row. They'll take on the Jacksonville Jaguars this week right here on 97.3 ESPN at Lincoln Financial Field. It's a 4 o'clock game. Remember, that game got moved. If there was one concern when you look at this matchup, Andrew, what would that be? Jacksonville has this, and that worries me. What's that?
I think really the only thing that can beat the Eagles, or the only thing that can stop the Eagles, is the Eagles themselves. Maybe getting too cute, maybe trying to become overly infatuated with the passing game because that's the way that the matchups really dictate. I think it behooves the Eagles to stick to the script, get Saquon in the mix early, have Jalen kind of operate and be in full control of the offense as he did against the Bengals, and not really stray too far from what has made them a successful offense, at least last week, and really just get a win. And I'm not a person who really takes too much stock into style points. I think the objective every week should be to win, and I'm sure that that's the Eagles' objective every week. So I think just don't overcomplicate things and kind of continue to use what's been so successful because that's an offense that's trending in the right direction.
I find that you're pausing to find something speaks volumes. This Jacksonville team is not good, and this therefore a Philadelphia game. This is a game that we should say, hey, they should not. The one thing I'll leave you with this: This team last week showed me something that I think, I don't want to say was questioned, but it showed that they have is some toughness and some meanness and some nastiness to kind of end the game, put it away. And that's something that we were wondering. The Giant game, we're like, whoa. And then to do it on the road against Cincinnati kind of said, okay, I think they're kind of out of that malaise of that 1-7 where everybody was kind of questioning them.
Yeah, not only does that speak to Nick Sirianni and the team's buy-in, but it also speaks to the makeup of the locker room and players fighting for one another, accountability, connection, all the things that I know Sirianni's been mocked about in the past. That's a real thing, and you're seeing that play out in real time. Most teams aren't built like that, and I think you're seeing what the Eagles' DNA is. They're a team that is not going to shy away from the moment. They're going to, they're not going to quit. They're going to put the pedal to the metal every single week so you know that you're going to get their best. And it will never be due to a lack of focus that they're not able to, if they come up short on a Sunday. I think this is a team that's always going to be locked in, and that is the structure of this team and the direction that they're headed.
All right, Eagles and Jags. Eagles defense, fewest points in the last 3 weeks. See if they can hold down Jacksonville, who's lost a lot due to injuries. More on that coming up. Andrew DiCecco from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. Andrew, always appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, and, of course, Football at 4 is back next week. Adam Kaplan tomorrow with thoughts on the game and, of course, last-minute injury news here on the Sports Bash.